Hello fellow Star Trek fans, welcome back to a brand new episode of 10 Forward, the Star Trek episode summary and recap series brought to you as part of the Clonestar podcast. I am your host Mike Overton, and in this week's episode we are checking out Star Trek Lower Decks Season 5, Episode 6. This episode is entitled Of Gods and Angles. Let's get into it. This week, the USS Cerritos is hosting peace talks between the photonic cube and orb energy beings, but the ship has been filled with petty, shaped-based bickering, making the atmosphere tense and rather chaotic. Ransom has little patience for a new ensign, Olly, who is literally the demigod daughter of Zeus, whose antics have earned her the reputation of causing trouble on multiple ships. Her chaotic nature makes her a prime candidate for Ransom's no-nonsense wrath, but Mariner sees something in Olly that resonates with her. Sensing a kind of kindred spirit, Mariner decides to take Olly under her wing. Mariner finds Olly in her old bunk, where the ensign's attempt to engineer a mini tractor beam results in, well, a power surge, creating, well, just a little more havoc. Their first task is to babysit Quadrillon, the lead cube child, but upon visiting his quarters they find them completely trashed, with signs of mysterious photonic residue suggesting something more sinister at play. The pair are ordered to quietly investigate, starting with the missing computer of Quadrillon. Their search leads them to the ship's gym, where they discover the orb's pad containing anti-cube propaganda, including the chilling message, "Time to shave those edges for once and all." Rondus, the orb envoy, explains that he is pro-treaty and was only collecting the propaganda to destroy it, not spread it. However, Olly's rather impulsive behaviour leads her to accuse him of involvement in the supposed murder of Quadrillon. Mariner, ever the level-headed one, yeah I know, I never thought I'd ever going to say that, pulls Olly back, but in the process Rondus slips away and heads towards the tense negotiating room. This sparks, well, a turn of events revealing a deeper mystery, and it turns out that Redaria, the lead Sphere's child, is, well, also missing. And the ship is now plunged into complete and utter chaos of a shape war as photonic battles erupt across the Cerritos. Amidst the chaos, Mariner's instinct to tell her that something it doesn't quite add up, and she tracks Quadrillon's missing computer to Olly's locker, which raises more suspicion. "Did you kill a kid?" Mariner asks, confronting her. Olly confesses that she had seen the melted computer, fearing that her electrical powers, though far from impressive, would once again lead her to be blamed for something that she didn't do. Mariner convinces Olly to absorb the energy from the cubes and orbs in an effort to stop the battle, but things kinda go awry. Instead of stabilising the situations, Olly's powers resorted into, well, one of her weak lightning bolts firing off, which lodges itself in the unfortunate place of Boimler's butt. This unexpected turn catches the attention of Dr. T'Ana, who's, well, let's face it, she's less than thrilled with the situation. Meanwhile, battling photonic shapes, cube and orb continue to clash, with the Cerritos, well, sort of piggy in the middle and stuck. Olly, realising that her divine heritage wasn't the solution, she then focuses on her engineering skills. With Mariner's encouragement, she manages to repair the mini tractor beam, impressing Chief Billups with her technical expertise. The Cerritos successfully drains the energy from the shapes, which return them to the shuttle bay. But it's there where the mystery finally unravelled. Quadrillon and Redaria, it turns out, were not the victims of foul play after all. They were just simply in love, secretly engaging in a photonic, well, dance of sorts. I think we know what that means. And their rooms were trashed as part of their, well, kink. This revelation is somewhat embarrassing for the young couple, and it leads them to the formation of the Treaty of Squaron. I like that, Squaron, it's a cool word. Named after the adorable hybrid child, a new shape that inspires both Cube and Ord factions to put aside their differences. Back in sickbay, T'Ana finishes Boimler's butt surgery, affectionately dubbed the butt Bolchenemy, and gleefully reflects on how this new procedure will make her, well, legendary. Boimler, now somewhat embarrassed, is ready to sink away, but T'Ana invites him to her book club and dubs him with a new nickname, Fucko. Boimler, despite the awkwardness, is ecstatic to finally be part of the club and to have a nickname, though less than flattering gives him a sense of belonging. As for Olly, well, she's allowed to stay aboard the Cerritos, though she faces a stint in the brig for her role in hiding the computer. Afterwards, she was transferred to engineering, where she can put her chaotic skills to better use. As she sits in the brig, Mariner hangs outside her cell, already plotting how they can become the best of friends, much to Olly's defiant amusement. Despite the rocky start, Olly finds the irony in the situation and is more than happy to offer Mariner gossip from Mount Olympus, starting with the tales of Medusa. In the circle of life aboard the Cerritos, both Ensign Olly and Mariner are ready to face whatever new chaos the universe throws at them next. The only thing I didn't like this week is, to be honest, it was such a predictable story. Watching the episode, within about 3 minutes in, I kind of knew where this was going to go. It's that kind of typical... it's not Romeo and Juliet, is it? What's the other one? It has escaped me, but there we go. But it is that typical, two warring factions whose children then end up falling in love with each other and they all make amends. It's just that very, very typical... Very much like last week, a very obvious storyline, and I feel like sometimes that takes away from all the hard work that the animators, the directors, the producers, even the artists themselves all put into these episodes. And I kind of wish that they would stop using predictable storylines, but I think we got 3 episodes left, so it could just be a case that they just needed some space to fill and that they're a quick ride. But who knows. So this week, I tell you what, although this week's episode was that little bit predictable, and it was, there were some really funny, really good parts. I thought Olly is a fantastic character. She's got this kind of whole she's got the demigod aspect going for her, with the whole Zeus thing and the lightning bolts. The whole kind of Boimler subplot, which is Boimler trying to replicate his old self with the stolen red pad of mystery, I think is brilliant. I really did like that everybody had noticed the pad, and the only thing that they noticed, the fact with the bevels were different, yet Boimler's the only one to point out that it's red, and none of them had noticed, which I thought was hilarious. Just the whole thing I think is brilliant. The fact that Boimler's beard is gradually growing, a little bit like himself, he's also gradually growing, I thought was fantastic. My standout moment this week is the whole sort of Ta'ana Boimler sub-story. Boimler wanting to be part of Ta'ana's book club, him going completely and utterly out of his way to try and do it, and then eventually finally getting it after the lightning bolt removed from his backside, and now getting his new nickname, which he's ecstatic about. I also thought it's kind of funny that Rutherford now wants to have a look at the pad to see what his alt self is also doing. So that whole kind of extra sub-story that's sort of going throughout the entire season is my standout moment from this week's episode. This mid-season episode has all the hallmarks of, a classic TNG-era bottle show with familiar setup and strong character moments. The main plot feels like a Trek mashup of diplomatic tensions like Lonely Among Us, godlike beings, energy creatures, and struggling crew members, making it, just that little bit predictable. Lower Decks has fun with these familiar tropes, but the story itself doesn't offer many surprises. The real focus, though, on its character development, particularly in the introduction of Olly. She acts as both an echo and a foil to Mariner, showcasing how much Mariner has evolved from her chaotic, sometimes irritating Season 1 self. Sabia Amayun offers a fun to Olly's kook demigod role, whilst Tawny Newsome continues to shine as the more responsible Mariner, which is something I'd never thought I was ever going to say, though it's already grounded itself covered in the season. With fewer episodes left, it might be nice to have more of a focus on other characters. One standout this week is, Dr. Ta'ana, who finally gets some much needed depth. Gillian Vigman brings her signature spicy dialogue, but this time we see the softer side of the Doctor as she warms up to Boimler's desperate need for approval. Jack Quaid's frantic performance, supported by Eugene Cordero and Noel Wells, makes the B story rather engaging, often the case with the classic TNG bottle shows. Boimler's quest to emulate his alt self and the consequences of stealing Beard Boimler's pad are intriguing, though the gag about the unnoticed red pad was a nice touch. Boimler's beard, as it is growing through the series as a metaphor, is also coming along quite nicely. After last week's Easter egg heavy episode, this one keeps the references light, and instead of focusing on the show's own history, particularly the loving brig scene and the ensign bunks make nostalgic return, complete with, well, Towel Guy. The Cerritos itself shines when its tractor beam helps de-escalate the conflict between the warring shapes, adding an appropriate level of self-reflection. The episode's self-reverence feels fitting, especially with those final episodes looming. As for the space pothole arc, it remains untouched, proving that the character stories are the main priority this season. Still, for fans of the mystery, it would be nice to just kind of get a glimpse of it soon. Whilst the familiar setup feels, well, just that little bit repetitive, the episode delivers with sharp lines, funny gags, and a welcome of Dr. T'Ana's unique bedside manner. Of Gods and Angles proves that Lower Decks not only understands the styles and tropes of Star Trek, but also captures the heart and warmth. With the season finale on the horizon, he's hoping that all the characters gets their moments to shine before the show comes to a close. Thank you for tuning into this week's episode of 10 Forward. Remember, you can get more Clonestar podcasts at our website, clonestarpod.com, as well as joining our Patreon from as little as £2, dollars, or euros a month. With our Patreon, you help us keep the lights on and, well, get some incredible guests. Information on how to join up is available in the podcast description as well as the video description. But until next time, live long and prosper.